Okay, now we come to the LFO. Now the LFO is a very simple function, and some of you might say, Mark, do you even need to demonstrate the LFO? But I do, and you'll see why. First of all, I couldn't get to it yet because it is entirely, well, with one tiny exception we'll talk about later, but it is mostly controlled by the matrix. So I had to do the matrix demonstration before I could talk about how the LFO can be routed. So I'm going to start right off doing that. Okay, we have this LFO. It's got a number of functions. I'm going to talk about the functions. Let's start off with the super basic stuff, the waveforms. And I'm going to demonstrate the waveforms using pitch because I think it's fun and sometimes funny. Okay, let's go to LFO over here on the matrix, and I will apply it directly to oscillator 1. I'm going to turn down oscillator 2. So we have a sine wave directed entirely to VCO1. That sounds like a sine wave. And keep in mind that there's another part of this function that is right over here. The amount knob is super important. Listen. You can have very subtle, downright vibrato-like application by using this. Or you can have very extreme modulation. Going pretty much the whole gamut of human hearing, or at least my hearing. Actually, the high is not quite as high as it could be. But anyway, the point of the matter is you get to decide to what degree the LFO will modulate what you're modulating, and you can go everywhere from very, very tiny amount to a very broad modulation. I'm going to set it in the middle, so we just to demonstrate the wave shapes. So next, we'll do the triangle. Now, people often say a triangle is a different modulation than a sine wave, and they do sound very similar, but when you compare them, you can hear the difference. Let's listen. This is the triangle. Sine. Yes, and so, yeah, you have both of those, even though they're similar. You have square. You have what I would call saw. You have ramp. You have sample and hold. If you turn this all the way up, your range is everything from the clicks up to dog whistle. So the more traditional setting would be more around here. Then you get sample and hold with lag, which means the changes in voltage in the sample and hold are delayed a bit. So instead of precise changes in frequency, you get basically a portamento effect. That is such a great modulation source because it just basically has a lot of voltage swinging all over the place, and you can use that in really subtle ways to make sounds evolve over time. So that's a wonderful option to have in the midst of your LFO. I can't wait to use it. I've missed not using it. The next thing we should talk about is, let's talk about rate here. As you can tell, it's very, very slow. And you'll notice here at the other end, it starts to make a buzzing noise. And you know what happens when it makes a buzzing noise? It has reached audio range. And that is a desirable thing. And I just realized something. I'm sitting here playing it, and the rate stays the same no matter what frequency I play. You might even say to yourself, hey, well, maybe I'd like that rate to change with the frequencies that I play. And what do you have to do that? Just immediately go right over here to keyboard and direct. Let's see, we'll take 13. We'll affect the rate of the LFO, and we'll direct keyboard to that rate. We'll jack it up. So you can even, using the Matrix makes everything wonderful. You don't even have to settle for the frequency of the LFO. You can control the frequency of the LFO with whatever you want. So this audio range thing becomes even more useful. Okay, so I just wanted to show that, but that is your rate range from very, very slow to up into the audio range. So you can get, interesting effects, like if you wanted to direct it to the Steiner filter. You're getting basically the same effect as if you set some noise directly there. And you can bring the amount down to just a little bit of buzz. To give it a little bit of warmth. So yeah, if that's a thing that you wanted to do, you don't have to do that. But yeah, having an audio range LFO is a useful thing, and that's super awesome. Another thing we have, let's listen to this. In this, you can adjust the phase, which is basically the placement of the waves in the LFO. You can shift them to one side or the other. And why this makes a difference is later you can basically decide where you want the wave to start in the midst of the wave, because usually you have the option of starting the wave at 0 where the wave starts. With this, you can start the wave anywhere along its length if you're syncing it with a sequence. So you get to decide how the modulation acts over time, as far as where it is placed over time. That is an amazing function to have here. And there's also another way that it's very useful, which I suppose I'll dive into right now, which I didn't know. Okay. I'm an idiot. I totally ignored the retrig button here. It's been sitting here the whole time I've had this synth and been demonstrating it, and I just kept on going triggering. I don't know. I'll worry about triggering later. But it's sort of misleading. It's been in the off setting this whole time, and what the LFO is doing in the off setting is it's free running, just like an analog LFO. It's just doing its thing. It's going. It's not going anywhere. I mean, it's just continually running. When you switch it to, for example, multi, then it restarts the waveform every time you play a note. So when you're sequencing it and you're syncing it to a sequence, you can, then have certain effects that you have the LFO directed to happen in time with the music and always start at the same place, so they always behave the same way, which is really cool. And that's used in a lot of music right now. And that's where the phase comes in, because right now, because the phase is at 0, it's starting at the beginning of the wave, the beginning of this sine wave. But we can move it so it starts at different points in the wave. That is really, really cool. I'm sure you can imagine how effective that would be in a sequence if you wanted that wave to, start at a different point than it would start. You have the freedom to decide where it starts, which is super cool. Next, I'm going to talk about... and I should also point out that both rate and phase, like we demonstrated with rate, phase, where the wave starts, that can be modulated over here in the matrix. You can choose one of the assignable columns and just assign phase. And then you can modulate phase in time with whatever you're recording or whatever you want to do. It's super powerful.